Over 1,700 new millionaires are created every single day in the US alone, and more than double that across the globe. They're people from all walks of life, most of them people just like you and I. So the big question is this: how are so many people who didn't inherit money or have any special advantages overcoming the odds and becoming millionaires? That's the question, and this show will give you the answers. My name is Jeff Lerner, and welcome to Millionaire Secrets. Welcome to another episode of Millionaire Secrets. This is Jeff Lerner, your host, back with you as always, and excited for another exploration of success, what it takes, how gnarly, messy, and even ugly it is, and but ultimately how great it is when you come out the other side. So I'm joined today by Jimmy Vreeland. He's a co-founder of Cashflow Tactics. He has a real estate investment company. He once flipped 100 houses in a year. He's been in the military. He's a tough, sharp, no-holds-barred guy, and he's going to tell us like it is. Jimmy, welcome to Millionaire Secrets.
Hey, dude. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, glad you're here, man. So, you know, I've interviewed two of your business partners prior to this. So that's my context, anyways, for the conversation. But what I picked up from them, and what I'm detecting from you too, is that you guys all come at it. You have very different backgrounds, very different angles, probably very different functions within your organization. For those who've listened to my show, I'm referring to Brad and Ryan, the other founders of Cashflow Tactics, which is Jimmy's company as well. But man, we were just kind of riffing before I hit record, and it sounded like we're of a like mind, that like it's pretty messy what we do. And you were talking about, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if we could just pick that conversation up. You were talking about the abyss, the trough, the darkness, whatever, the dip, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And that's so inherent to success and business ownership, entrepreneurship. So why don't you pick up that riff, man? It was great.
Yeah. So we were talking about like kind of the stages of entrepreneurship and business ownership. And like, I was in a corporate sales job after I got out of the Army for 8 years. And then like you start listening to Tim Ferriss podcast, you start wondering, you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, you start wondering what's out there, and you're like, that day I get to tell my boss to take this job and shove it. Like, it's going to be the greatest day ever, right?
Right.
And like, your problems have just started once you've had that day.
Careful what you wish for, right? Right.
I mean, I would never, ever go back, but I wish someone would have told me what we're about to discuss today. That's I guess what I'm saying.
Well, that's why Millionaire Secrets exists, man. I want the world to know what they're signing up for, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And hopefully, if they believe as I believe, and I'm guessing you believe that it's worth it, then they'll be inspired to try it and do the really gritty, hard work that it takes, because it's still better than the other.
Yeah, we can start at the finish. I'll tell you why it's worth it. It's like, and now like, I've been to West Point. I've been to Ranger School. I've been to Iraq, been to Afghanistan. Like, I've done some hard stuff, right?
Yeah.
But do you want to know why I would never, ever, and I'm saying this and I'm 40 right now, but do you know I would never, ever, ever sell my business?
Tell me.
Like, there is no greater crucible for me to like rack myself on than my own business. Nothing inspires my own personal growth other than this business. Like, if I were to sell today, I just wouldn't grow. I couldn't play the game anymore. I could not do it. I would not do it.
Well, you'd have to start something else. I mean,
right.
Or else you'd probably die.
And but then part of the vision, I think, with I'm going to call him entrepreneurship on Instagram. It's like you sell your business, you're like swimming in cash, and you just sit on the beach the rest of the day. And I know there's people out there who that happens to, and good on them. They're better business owners than me. But like right now, I would never want to take that route because I would stop growing.
Well, yeah. I mean, so I'm building a business right now, two businesses that are kind of interlinked that frankly, we are building with an eye towards selling, but that's only so that we can create a different set of possibilities for what's next and play at a different level or play a different game. Like you said, like I'd have to quit playing the game.
Yeah.
You never want to quit playing the game. It's like, we're like sharks, man. If we're not swimming forward, what are we doing? Just sinking, right?
And like, once I got like quit my job and like, it was awesome. It felt great, right? It felt awesome for like 3 weeks. And then I got my first P&L of my business. And I was like, oh my God, I have to work. and I have to work hard. And like, I don't have the skill sets right now to do what this takes. And that, like, those are scary days. Like, really, like, curled up in the fetal position, my wife spooning me, scary days. Like, saying, you can do it.
So let's back up. Let's fill in some of the colors around this story. So you were in the military. You went to West Point. So you were an Army officer?
Yeah, you leave there as a second lieutenant.
Okay. And what, I mean, you went to Ranger school, like you did, like you said, you did some hard shit. Like tell me about that part of the journey, please.
Okay. Yeah. So people like, did you always want to be in the Army? I was like, no. I was like, I wanted to play D1 football. Right. Yeah. And like, I was not going to go to an SEC. I'm from St. Louis. Like, Mizzou was not going to recruit me. Right.
Right.
And so I was able to, the one place I could play D1 was Army. So I did it. And then, like, I loved all the working out. I loved all the physical. It was the place for me, even though I was a horrible cadet and I was always getting in trouble. But so I get out of West Point. I go to Ranger school, and then boom, like 2 months later, I'm in Iraq for a year. And like, I'm going through some hard stuff, get the IEDs. And then I go over there for a year, and then I'm always looking for the next challenge to play the game. And so I had a Ranger tab. So then Ranger Regiment would be the next challenge. So go through that selection, go to Iraq and Afghanistan with them and over the next kind of 2 to 3 years. And then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was in Afghanistan.
What year was that?
2007.
Okay.
And I got in 08. And I was just like, between West Point and the Army, it was like 9 years of military life. My next promotion was going to put me in a desk. I was like, okay, time to pop smoke. I'm done. Like, I want to go try this business thing. So I get out, and then the whole time I'm overseas, I'm sending money back to my brother and my mom, and we're buying up houses in St. Louis. And so I was always picking off rentals. And then I come home, and I go to a recruiter, like a headhunter, he was an Army football guy too. And he's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. Make some money. And he's like, okay, well then you got to go sell. Can you sell? I was like, I don't know, but I'll try. And then, like, luckily sales and like football and sports, they were almost like the same for me. And like, it was I always loved selling. And at the end of the day, that'll always be my core competency. And so I did that for 8 years. I met my wife. And then between 2010 and 2014, we were having a kid every year. And so I just got to the point inside this corporate job where it was really easy. And I was making like good, decent money, but nothing was driving me to get better. And then I found this out about myself, but like when I'm stuck and not moving, I'm like a petulant child. Like, I love it when I see inside my own kids, like they're stuck and frustrated and their reactions. I was like, oh, they got that from me.
Okay. So you said that sales, I'd like to talk a little bit more about sales. You said it came pretty easily for you. It was a lot like sports. I always tell people, cause I get hit up all the time from people like, hey, what should I do? I want to be a millionaire. It's my own fault. I have a show called Millionaire Secrets, and I run ads. I have a book called The Millionaire Shortcut, and I run ads about the fastest way to become a millionaire. So it's not like I didn't tee up the question, but like, hey, I want to become a millionaire. What do I do? And I always say, well, how much money you have, right? And if they have 500 grand, I'm like, okay, buy real estate, like do real estate investing, right? If they have like 50 grand, I'm like, let's start a digital business, right? Like an e-com store, create an affiliate blog or start, go buy some equipment and let's start making YouTube videos, right? Like, you don't have enough money to like quickly build a lot of leverage in real estate unless you have continuous cash flow that you can keep reinvesting.
Or
but you got enough
to do it actively and become a wholesaler, which at the end of the day, wholesaling is just marketing.
Yeah. And wholesaling's a job.
Oh yeah.
It's a full-time heavy duty job for a while.
Oh yeah.
So I kind of have this tier of like, if you have enough money, just invest in real estate, right? Use the bank's money to build leverage, and it may not be glamorous for a few years, but like you'll have a nest egg fast. Or if you have a little money, let's do digital business, which my company, Entra, we kind of steer people into those two things. But a lot of people are like, dude, I got no money, nothing. And I'm like, you got to sell.
Yep.
You got to get in the sales game. And if you can physically be the one to sell, do that. But let's say you have like, you're paralyzed and you have like severe challenges where you can't physically go be in sales. You still got to get into direct response marketing, learn to write copy, learn to optimize sales funnels, learn to run Facebook ads, like still something that drives sales. If you don't have money and you want to make a lot of money, you have to be generating money for a business owner for them to want to pay you. And who generates money? It's the sales guys, right?
Yep.
So that's why I kind of want to lean on or talk more about sales, because I prescribe selling to so many people, and nobody wants to hear it, by the way. Like, I don't want to be in sales.
It's a prereq. If you want to be wealthy, you have to be able to persuade people.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. So talk to me more. When you say sales was a lot like football, did you simply mean that it came easily to you? Or did you mean that like it actually is equivalent to football in some ways?
It's like it was like a scoreboard every day. Like I would get my numbers texted to me. I would see my peers' numbers. And one of my best friends from West Point, we worked together. I would see his numbers and we would talk shit. And it was a big game.
What were you selling?
Knee and hip replacements.
Okay. It's a high ticket item.
Yeah.
Probably pays a good commission. By the way, I'm always telling people all sales jobs and all products and services are not created equal. Try to sell stuff that has a really high price tag so they can afford to pay you well to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you can get a job selling private jets, do that.
Do it.
And then like just go down from there.
But whether it's a knee, a hip, a jet, any product, real estate, it's all the same. It's just this, and this is straight from Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad. He worked at Zero. He sold copiers for like 5 to 6 years. You have to be able to persuade and get the ideas of show the person you're selling the value you're going to create for them.
And to be able to paint the picture and to enroll them in the narrative and inspire the belief and create the likability, the spirit of reciprocity, whatever it is, the principles of persuasion.
Cashflow Tactics, it's like dollars follow value. You as a salesperson, you got to open the door so that you can shove a bunch of value into this person's life.
I like that. Dollars follow value. Yeah,
like
that's
the
so
hippies.
Cool. Go ahead.
The hippies and the post-Marxists and these turds running around destroying property lately, they think rich people are wealthy because they take. Right?
Yeah. I don't agree, but I know that's what they think. Yeah.
If they would pick up a basic economics book, you would realize that economics in business is just trade amongst individuals. And we use dollars as a medium of exchange to trade. You have something I want, I have something you want, and we trade for it. Yeah. And so basically the whole human trade is you have to give somebody a value so they give you those rectangular greenbacks.
Yeah.
So like whenever you want to make more money, how can you provide more value to other people?
Yeah, not to get into too much social commentary, but the one way to guarantee that you never get paid anything is to destroy things. Because value is a function of creation, not destruction.
And I do have a pretty diverse background in destroying things, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
And it's like, yeah, a lot the Ranger stuff people think is cool, but like intellectually, it is so much harder to build something and create value for other people than just say, go to. And I don't want to disrespect any of my brothers and sisters in the military, but it's just a different intellectual challenge. And like, it's much easier to destroy than build.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's interesting. So you did sales. It came naturally to you because I assume, in part at least because you're competitive.
Yeah, my boss like played football too, and he'd be like, "You didn't make that sale, you're a little bitch." And it would be just like being on the football field, like, I'm going to show him. I'm going to find a way to make that sale.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about that though. So you want to find a way to make that sale. I mean, I love selling. Like I will geek out. We could talk for hours just about sales psychology and application. But so how do you approach that? If he's like, hey, you're a little bitch, you didn't make that sale, and you're like, I'm going to get that sale. Like, where do you go from there? What's kind of your prevailing strategy or approach to selling?
Just find out what people want and go give it to them. Like some of my doctor customers, they wanted a buddy, right? Some of them wanted a lifting partner. Some of them wanted a guy to go party with. Some of them wanted like a really intellectual, technically know-how implant rep, right? So like when I was working on selling the party guy, I would party a lot. When I was working out selling the technical guy, I'd read a bunch of white papers. I'd go talk to experts. But it wasn't about what Jimmy wanted. It wasn't about how I wanted to personally sell. You just got to the reason you got to build personal relationships is because you got to find out what they want, and then you give it to them. It's so easy. It's so simple.
Yeah, that chameleon aspect of selling, which is just versatility. Yeah, man, it's having a flexibility in your personality.
And then getting over the fact that it's not what I want. It's what they want. And then if I couldn't deliver it to them, like I had this one rep, like this guy was pretty smart and he was my competitor. And I'd be like, look, if you want the boring guy who knows all the technical knowledge, he's your guy.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to get there. And or I'll find somebody who will give you that knowledge, but it probably is not going to be me. And then, there's a difference between knowing your limitations and then telling yourself you have limitations.
Yeah, that's a fair point. It's like the day I had to accept that I was never going to play in the National Football League. Just wasn't going to happen, man. That wasn't a self-imposed limitation. That was just an acknowledgement of a truth.
And here's the funny part. Like anybody who puts on a helmet, they're going to, whether it's, one day Tom Brady's going to have that conversation with himself. Yeah. Or people like you and me who realize it when you're like, in between ages 17 and 20. Right. Everybody's going to have that conversation with themselves.
That's funny. So true. Okay. So you're selling 8 years of sales. You do well. You're selling nip and heat. I mean, you're in medical sales. So I know that you did pretty well, especially during that time. It's probably harder now, but, and so when did you get out of that?
2016.
2016. Okay. Is that when you went hard? I know you said you were buying rental properties all along while you're in the military, but is that when you went kind of hard into real estate?
Yeah. So we had our fourth kid. Yeah. Johnny turns 5 next week. So we had our fourth kid in 2016. And like, I'm getting yelled at by a doctor, like 2 hours after Johnny's born, because the replacement I sent to replace me, like couldn't get it done. Right. And at this point I had 60 rental properties and we could, on a ramen noodle shoestring budget, we would be fine. Right.
Right.
And so my wife is just like, this sucks. And she used to do medical sales. She works for Stryker too. She's like, this sucks. Why don't you just quit and let's take a swing. Let's take a swing and see how, if you put all your energy into it, how you can do in real estate.
And you had 60 active rentals at that time.
Yep.
I just want to pause on that for a second, take a little beat. Like I interviewed a guy yesterday. This guy's a medical student in the United Kingdom. His name's Ali Abdal. You can check him out. In the UK, super cool guy. He was so much younger than I was expecting too, because I saw that he was a doctor and a YouTuber. But he's not actually a doctor, he's not a practicing doctor yet. He's like finishing med school. Or I guess he's in some tweener phase where he's technically a doctor, but he doesn't have a practice yet.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing he's like 24, but he's got a YouTube channel with 1.1 million subscribers. and it's an educational channel. So he's teaching people computer coding or video production, or it's like kind of whatever he's into, how to get into medical school, how to study for essay tests. Like it's just whatever his, cerebrum wants to talk about. But I know the economics of that niche, the online, the business and education niche online with a YouTube channel, 1.1 million subs. He's making at least as much as a very well-paid doctor, probably more, just passively from that YouTube channel. And to hear him talk about how he's able to approach the medical industry because he's not desperate for money. He's not having to approach it from the paradigm of I have all these student loans and I have all these startup costs for my practice and I have to take the next 20 years just to get back above water. Like it changes everything. So he's like, I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to do emergency medicine. I'm going to help people. He gets to frankly be so much more altruistic and benevolent in the way he approaches medicine because he's not desperate for cash. Yep. And what I'm hearing you is that same type of control and freedom in your life. And, the reason go ahead.
Yeah, I knew. So in Cashflow Tactics, we call it your strike number. Okay. Like for 3 years, like I monthly budgeted and I knew to the dollar what Susie and I and our kids needed to live per month.
Right.
And I just treated that like another game, like a target. You figure $200 to $300. I was generous to myself, so I had $300 per rental property.
Okay.
And I just said, I was like, for us to live in a nice, badass house like we live in and not use a change of lifestyle. This means no vacations. It means no nights out, right? But I figured we needed $7,000 a month, right?
Okay.
And so so $7,000, let's divide it by 200. That's 35 rentals.
35 houses, yeah.
Now, in reality, does each house crank out $200 a month? No. But it didn't matter. I just needed to double it and then feel safe to get my time back. Yeah,
and that concept, you call it the strike number. In my business, we have two numbers that we talk about. One is the magic number, which is what you're talking about. It's that number where you've effectively replaced your job.
Yep.
And then we have another term we use called the awesome life number, which you'll probably like, which is essentially your awesome life number is 5 times your magic number or your strike number. Because at your awesome life number, you can take 40% to taxes, 40% to savings and investment, and 20% is equal to your magic number or your strike number. Yep. So essentially it's 5 times, but so we teach that same concept. And the reason I'm like camping on this for a minute here in this conversation is for the audience. I want you guys to hear, like, first of all, you have to be thinking this way. If you want to reach a point in your life where basically you're not trapped, people like there's prisoners who make a lot of peace with the fact that they're a prisoner.
Right.
Like, oh, well, man, I got a roof over my head and there's a little mouse that comes in my cell and he's like my friend.
Yeah.
And I've never missed a meal. Like, man, it's not so bad. I could do this. And, they make peace with it. Doesn't mean they're not still a prisoner.
Right.
And the reality is in this world, the only people that aren't are the yous and the me's and the Ali Abdals who have some sort of passive income that sprung the latch on their cell.
Yeah. And it's about, Ryan, my partner, he does a great job of striving. You just get your time back.
Yeah. Mm. So did you have that sense, like when you were buying these properties all along the way, were you doing it with this in mind, or were you just like, well, shoot, I'm in Iraq. There's nothing for me to spend my money on here. Let me just send it home. And it was just kind of more flippant.
When I first started, I kind of decided like, this was cool. You never know what you're doing. You're starting.
Right.
And my brother's like, he's a surgeon. He's crazy smart. He's like, we should do this. And I was like, all right, cool. We'll do this. But then, in that corporate job when I was stuck and I was paying like 50% in taxes, And like, you know, I'm a highly competitive person. And when I couldn't grow anymore or didn't see a new challenge, like, and I only kept half of what I earned, and I was a veteran, and I was like, I fought to be free, fought for other people's freedom, and I'm keeping 50 cents on the dollar. This is bullshit. Like, real estate was the way out.
Yeah, that's interesting. And truly, I mean, for me, I teach real estate and digital business. That's it, man. And even digital business, I actually use the term digital real estate because I simply think of computer screens. It's like land, only it's vertical. And you develop it just the same way you develop property. And you create cash flow properties online just the way you do offline. I actually just think of it as a continuum. It's like analog and digital, but it's all real estate.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Cashflow Tactics as another asset on my balance sheet.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, 2020 has been a rough year, just a different year, right? But dude, because of the internet, you have the possibility and the potential to sell your thoughts to another human being. You know how lucky you are?
Yeah, I mean, I say this at risk of sounding, gratuitous, but I mean, my business has grown like almost 2,000% in 2020.
Yeah.
Because it's internet based. Thank you for saying that. I'm out here like, banging the gong for people like internet and real estate. Stop monkeying with all that other crap that's got too many uncontrollable variables, Yep. And by the way, the concept of the job foremost among them. I'm not saying quit your job, but mentally detach from your job. I mean,
your job, your current ceiling in your current employment, if you are a W-2 employee, is not your real ceiling.
Yeah.
Because the other thing you got to realize is like, so I have like 25 employees right now, but if they describe what they did as prison, like I would definitely be butthurt. Like it would definitely hurt my feelings, but I'm always encouraging him to invest in real estate. Yeah. I'm always encouraging him because I know the more sophisticated and more valuable they become, the more valuable our team is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And ideally you reach a point where everybody's there. It's like they say, if you love someone, set them free. If they come back, they're yours forever. If you love your employees, teach them to become sophisticated investors to where they don't actually need the job. And if they still choose to help you advance your mission, they're there because they love it.
Right.
And how awesome of a company would you have if you had 25 people and none of them needed the job, but they all still showed up every day because they just love the mission?
It would be nice.
Yeah. And I'm right there with you, man. I used to have an agency upstairs. We had a little over 50 employees. And I used to tell them, because it's weird when you're an entrepreneurial evangelist and yet you have employees, it almost feels like, well, am I, is it right that I'm employing people when I'm out there telling the world that, that job is an optional concept now? And so I used to tell my team, I'm like, listen, guys, I need you to understand the day you come to me and say, Jeff, I no longer need this job, I will be your biggest cheerleader. I'll be so happy for you. And then if you say, I want to go start a business, I'm going to say, show me the plan. Maybe I can help. Or if you want to stay here, I'll be like, awesome. So we're doing, it's not like I won't keep paying them, but like, we're not doing this out of this dependency loop anymore.
Right.
Well, that sounds a whole lot healthier. That's like a healthy marriage, right? We don't need each other. We just love each other.
Yeah. And like we specifically say in like our intro letter, don't just be here because you're showing up for a paycheck. Like we are a team and we are playing a game.
So what is the game that they tell me a little more about Cashflow Tactics? Like what's the game? And I want to go back, but I'm just going to jump ahead real quick. What is the game you guys are playing?
The community inside Cashflow Tactics or me, Ryan, and Brad?
Yes.
Let's go with the community.
Yeah, I'd say both.
Fundamentally believe and that 97% of financial advice is just wrong, right? Like for your audience, like nothing makes me angrier and more disappointed that like when a business owner or an aspiring business owner goes to their Edward Jones guy for financial advice. Because you and I both know how hard is it to squeeze profit out of your business.
Yeah.
It's miserable.
Brutal. It's brutal. Yeah. Yeah.
So a traditional financial planner is going to look at your P&L. He's going to look at your paycheck, and this turnip that you finally start squeezing profit out of, he's going to tell you to then invest said cash in somebody else's business on Wall Street and maybe get some profit back. And that to me is asinine. He's going to give you, say, hey, you get a 6% return if you follow the S&P index. And then Brad taught me this, but it's like, dude, what do you get inside a return in your own business? And if there's another and then, because a lot of business owners come to me and say, hey, Jimmy, I want to buy real estate. And I'm like, okay, on a good day, you're going to get a 10% cash and cash return in real estate. What do you get in your business? And they're like, 50. And I was like, do you want to slow down in your business anymore? And they're like, no. And I'm like, why are you buying real estate from me? You need to go keep investing in your systems, processes, and assets inside your business. I can't serve you. Now, there is there are business owners at certain parts in their career where it is time to start offloading and getting some cash flow. But if you're still in the growth phase, it's like, I don't think you should buy houses from me. And it's a very weird conversation because I'm a salesperson.
Right. And so do you think that, one of the reasons I love internet business is there's no like natural boundaries to scale. It's not like I'm going to go, well, I'm the biggest supplier in Texas and I don't really want to deal with expanding into Louisiana. So I'll call it good. The internet, you never really hit those limits, right? There's no boundaries. There's no regions. It's just scale until there's no one left to buy, basically.
Yep. And so like the game, to go back to your question, the game inside Cashflow Tactics is just exposing people to the real financial rules that actually work, whether you're a W-2 or a business owner. So first of all, we take you through a big thing where we just show you how it's so easy to mitigate your taxes. Because going back to your strike number, if you're making $300K a year, to get to par, the only where you have to get, for me with Striker, I was making around $300 a year. To get to par, I really only had to make $150 because with taxes, I was only keeping $150K.
Right.
And so, it's scary to quit your job. I was like, how am I going to replace $300K? And then it was like, oh, you only have to really replace 150. That divided by 12 is like 10 something. That's not that hard. Oh,
right.
Wait, and I only need 7 to live. That's really not that hard. So the jump isn't that hard. And then you have to learn the 3% of financial thought, financial theory, financial rules that actually work and that can accelerate you and your life and your financial game plan.
So the traditional financial management, financial advisory business, what's your theory on how such a large thing got so far askew from actually giving people value and sage advice? Is it because it's just like this big instrument to raise capital for big companies, or is it a big sales racket to pitch products for commission? Like how do you explain the distortion?
Well, there's massive subsidies. I'm not going to be like Mr. Conspiracy, but the quick math is the 401k is a massive subsidies to those publicly traded companies.
Dig into that statement. I think I follow, but can you peel it back a little?
Let's say you're working at Apple and you are preparing for your retirement, right? And you're like, wow, I got this great investment opportunity with Vreeland Capital in St. Louis to buy a rental property. So you go to your 401k manager and you say, hey, I want to buy a rental property with that money. What is that person going to say?
Well, the money's already deployed over here, and I assume I've never had a job. I had one job when I was 16 years old, but I assume there's penalties.
They're going to say you can't do that.
Oh, you can
only you can only invest in this SKU of publicly traded companies.
Oh, okay.
So if all those investment dollars, every employee every month is all getting funneled directly to Wall Street companies because they, only certain assets are qualified for these retirement programs.
And I assume it's like securities that are traded through the big public exchanges. It's just the Wall Street apparatus. So I can't take my 401k and go buy like gold and silver.
Say that again.
Can I take my 401k money and go buy gold and silver?
Not if you want their company match. If you want to do a self-directed IRA, you can do that. But there's a lot of, you're not going to be able to get your company match.
Okay.
So just think about it. You can't invest to get those investments with your company match, what everybody's hunting for.
Right.
There's a certain skew of companies you can do that with on Wall Street. And I'm not going to put a value statement on it, but that is definitely a subsidy.
Well, it's almost like a cabal. Like all the companies got together and we're like, okay, we're gonna make what sounds like this great deal with our employees to match their dollars, but the trade-off is they all have to pump the money back into our same set of companies.
And in many times our own company to keep our stock prices up.
Wow. Well, again, I haven't had a job since I was 16 years old, and even that only lasted for 3 weeks. So I'm glad to say I have never had a 401k, but it sounds like I don't want one.
Yeah. And then they've also dumbed it down as simply as possible. And then they have an army, like a financial planner. At the end of the day, he's not a financial planner. He's a salesperson who's doing what his sales manager at Edward Jones tells him to do.
Because he's not actually allowed to go do his own independent research and find good financial products. Because if they're not in the brochure, he's not allowed to sell them.
And unless they're blessed off by the SEC and approved, so he doesn't lose his securities license.
Yeah. Huh, man. Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like a racket.
And then their marketing has been awesome. They've dumbed down investing so the simple man can get it. But that's why like a 401k, it's only like, they're only like 40 years old. They've never worked through a full generation. No one knows if they're going to end up working. And like, I don't think they're working.
Man, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, you've kind of opened Pandora's box here. I mean, like you said, you're like, I'm not going to go conspiracy theory, and I'm not one to go there either. But like, the reality is, like, how do you assimilate all this information without drawing pretty dark conclusions?
And I don't think they're dark conclusions. I think so in the 1970s, we're doing history. We're doing economic history with Jimmy. This is supposed to be a real estate podcast. But here's what happened. So let's go back to World War II. We just destroyed all of Europe and a lot of Asia, right? And we were the big kid left on the block.
Right.
And so, of course, our companies on this continent that didn't have any war were going to kick ass, right?
Right.
And so, of course, the employers weren't looking 30 years ahead, like when, hey, Europe recovers and Asia recovers, we're going to have some competition. So they're promising pensions to everybody.
Yeah.
And so then the middle class myth became get a good job, get a good pension, and just slug it away for 30 to 40 years, right? But then, the 70s happened. We're having economic turmoil. Europe and Asia are competing. These long-term liabilities inside these pensions, like we're screwed. Government, please find us a way so we can get rid of these pensions, but people don't feel like they're getting screwed. And these bureaucrats came up with the 401k. Now you fund your pension. Now you do it. And then we don't have these long-term pension liabilities.
So essentially the companies are only on the hook for half. And the trade-off is that the money essentially gets funneled back to them anyways.
Well, and they're off the hook as soon as you stop working.
Yeah. Yeah. So they don't have these contingent liabilities that carry on as long as you stay alive.
Yeah. Like who in their right mind would ever take on that liability? I'm not saying the companies were bad back then. I'm saying they were they had no competition, so they got a little cocky.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And especially coming out of the war, like you say, they had a couple decades of runway with like no competition, but then 70s, first of all, I guess the trade-off of being the big kid on the block is now you have to start spending a lot of money to protect your position.
Yep.
So the U.S. is having to spend trillions of dollars to defend itself all over the world and to entrench its interests and stuff. So essentially, yeah, I mean, you can see how it's such an untenable situation. Like it was never going to be a a permanent prosperity phase.
Well, yeah. Like at the end of the day, your own personal wealth is your personal problem and your personal responsibility.
Right.
And any politician that's saying he can help you with that is lying. That dude's going to be gone in 8 years. Like you have to do it yourself.
You know, you really nailed it right there, man. And I think that's the ultimate ethos of what I'm trying to impart to the world is I feel like we have created a society of sort of implicit dependency. We don't come right out and say, like, people aren't, quote, on welfare. Like, not everybody's on welfare, but most people are actually tied into a system that's actually just kind of a more complex and sophisticated form of welfare. Because the reality is, if you rip some fundamental components away that we have no control over, it all falls apart. Most people really don't have control.
No. And that's one of our main things inside Cashflow Tactics is like, you got to get control of your finances. You got to get control of your financial plan. And like, you got to mitigate your own systemic liabilities. No one else is going to do that for you.
So let's say you get a guy comes to you, he's you. Let's say you get you minus all the rental properties. So this guy doesn't already have the cash flow. Comes to you and says, hey, I got a $300,000 a year job. I'm pocketing 150. I'm living off 100. I got 50 that's going into whatever, CDs or annuities or stocks or my E-Trade or whatever. Like, what do you guys tell that guy?
All right, you got to start building your wealth pyramid. First of all, you have got to get all that money out of the stock market. You got to put it inside a vault. You got to have, if you want to start on your own, you got to get a vault where your money is accessible, liquid, and it's beating inflation, right?
Okay.
Then you're going to buy a couple rental properties, and then you're going to leave some capital in reserve, like 6 months. If you lose your job because you're messing around now, that you're solid. So that's got to be in reserve in your vault. And then you're going to start a side hustle. You're going to be picking off rentals, and you're going to be side hustling the whole time. Bottom line is you got to grow. You got to create more value because you are not on a path that is going to get you to financial freedom. And our target for everybody is 10 years.
Yeah, I remember when I was talking to Ryan, he was saying, one of the requirements of our methodology is people have to figure out how to increase their income.
Yes. And it's so painful to tell people, hey, bro, you have to make more money. Like, it sounds so arrogant. It sounds so, but once you're inside our group, it's like, hey, we could be nice and this internet community of likes and you do it, man. Yay. Right. Or we could be honest and get results.
Well, and it's hard telling a guy that makes $200,000 a year that he doesn't make nearly enough money.
Yeah.
I deal with that all the time. I know people that are in my community, they're 55 years old. They got $600,000 saved up for retirement. And I just have to tell them, dude, you're totally screwed. Unless you add a zero to that number, you're not retiring anytime soon. Not in the world we live in. And that's like so hard. That tough love approach with financial insight is really hard to do. But
even before the whole make more money thing, and like Ryan and Brad are master savers, but it's like, I got the book right behind there. It's like, you're going to read Richest Man in Babylon and you're going to exhibit that you can save 10% of your income every month, or you can't come in the group.
Huh.
Because you got to always be planning on that reserve. You always got to be planning on the worst case scenario. Yeah.
I mean, again, our awesome life number concept, I actually tell people you're not okay until you can pay all of your bills on 20% of your income.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds crazy aggressive, but it's like, man, if for me, for example, I sat down and I did all the numbers on my life. I got 4 kids. I got 4 cars. That's 4, and 2 of them are driven by teenagers. So you can imagine what my insurance is.
Right.
My auto insurance every month is what some families live off of. I mean,
sure.
It's ridiculous. And I've sat down one day and realized if I don't make $100,000 a month, and that's, I get how that sounds to people, but like I'm actually getting behind in terms of the trajectory I want for my life. And you start having these conversations with people. I'm curious. I mean, because you're Cashflow Tactics, I'm Entre Institute. So I'm like teaching people about starting a business, and there's a different frame for my conversations, but you're People are coming to you to tell them about their money. How do those conversations go when you start preaching some real hard truths that they don't want to hear, and maybe they've certainly never been exposed to before?
Well, like Ryan and Brad, they do that conversation. They would not allow me to start anywhere.
Are you a little too blunt or
yeah.
what? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm picking up on that, by the way. And for the record, on my show anyways, I like it. So
yeah, and it's just but that's like the interesting conversation. Like we're telling them up front, like, dude, I can't show you how to market. We're learning that ourselves. We're not that great at it. We're getting better. But then we refer them to somebody like you. Say, hey, if you want to go make some money, you got to talk to these people and get ready to pay.
Yeah.
And it's like a paradox. We're telling them to save money, but we're also telling them they got to invest in themselves.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. Investing in education, investing in a business, particularly investing in business education, it's not the opposite of saving money. It's no different than investing in a rental property. It should produce a return.
I would say it's probably a better investment than a rental property.
Yeah, it should produce a lot more than 10% cash on cash over the first 5 years. You go invest $5,000. I mean, we have courses that teach very granular, A to Z, soup to nuts, like how to build these digital businesses. And the courses range anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000. Once you get into our advanced courses, like people are like, I can't spend $4,000. It's like, if you had a legitimate digital business, even if it only made you $5,000 a month, that's $60,000 a year. That's on a $4,000 investment. That's 1,500% ROI per year. Yeah. What do you mean you don't have $4,000? And if you don't think that this could actually get you a business that made $5,000 a month, never mind that you don't have $4,000. You just shouldn't buy it, period. So it's like, yeah, people have this weird mathematical aversion to investing in themselves.
Well, and I will tell you, coming from the corporate world, you're just like, this can't be true. But if you're like, hey, spend $200,000 on a master's program, you're like, where's my checkbook?
Yeah, that's,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's why I always try to price condition what we sell against like a Harvard education.
Right.
It's like, well, you can go, yeah, by the way, I learned this statistic the other day. I've been spouting as often as I can. The average graduate of Harvard University, 12 years postgraduate, makes $84,000 a year.
I don't doubt it, but they have the ego. I'm sure they have a $300,000 a year ego that they're really smart.
Yeah, to go with their $300,000 in student debt.
And this is kind of ironic, though. You're going into that multiple $100,000 worth of debt, and now you are getting online classes, and now it is internet education.
I know. Oh my gosh, right? In the era of COVID, that was somebody, I forget who I had on the show the other day. They were saying, you take an organization like Stanford or MIT or Harvard, any of these schools, with the way so much of it is delivered online now, they could enroll 200,000 people. Like there's no reason this incoming freshman class at Stanford couldn't be 100,000 people next year because they're delivering it all digitally anyways. But the only reason they couldn't do that is because the alumni would pitch a fit, because now a Stanford education isn't as exclusive as it was when they paid for it.
Right.
It's so silly, right?
Yeah. I'm with you completely.
We're getting. I veered off on a tangent, but I just thought that was really a really astute point. So, okay, I want to back up a little bit then, or back kind of pick up the story. So you come out of sales, and then you start buying rental properties. You've got 60 properties, so you're able to quit your job. What has been the kind of the next step of building your empire from there? I mean, like to your point, at 60 rental properties, a lot of people would just be like, I'm good. I'm going to play golf. Right. You're obviously not that guy. So where'd you go from there?
Then I wanted to get to 100, right?
Right.
So then I had to start raising private money. So I got, through friends and family and banks, I got up to 60. But then the banks were like, hey, bro, you're growing too fast. We got to cut you off. Okay. And then, that conversation didn't go well. And so then I figured out, wait a minute, I can get people to lend me money on these private loans. And so I figured out how to do that. And then I hired a marketing coach. Yeah, I paid $5,000 to Joe Fearless, who's a great dude. Best $5,000 I ever spent, by the way, but I get it. At the time, I was like, I can't afford this. And he's like, Jimmy, obviously you're a talker. You're a sales guy. You got to select a medium, and then you got to just do it every day, whether it's writing. And I didn't want to write. I didn't want to do a blog. Speaking, podcast, like I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do videos. And so for a year, I made a YouTube video just talking about what I was doing, like the worst, silliest produced, horribly produced. But I raised $5 million from those videos.
I'm so glad to hear that, man. I have had so many, I say so many. I mean, I've probably on my show, I've been doing this for 4 or 5 months. I've probably done 80, 85 interviews.
Yep.
At least 5 of them have been real estate guys with YouTube channels. And that's what they say, man. They're like, you know, people come to my channel and they're like, oh, this guy's only got 700 subscribers, whatever. He's a loser. They're like, they have no idea that I get all my private money through my YouTube channel.
Yeah, bro, I may have 50 subscribers, but every of those 50 have 100 grand for me. So I don't really care.
Yeah. I'm going to be subscribing to your YouTube channel because I'm like, I want to do more real estate deals. I just don't have the time. So,
right.
You know, let's
we should talk offline about that.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like that's the other thing too, that is kind of a soft benefit of like, once you make this mental pivot of like, I'm not going to be a dependent person. I'm going to be an independent, self-determined person. Even if nothing has changed other than my mind, that mental shift will immediately start paying dividends through different conversations that lead to different relationships. So yeah, I mean, let's talk about, before we started this recording, you and I were you were talking about you were showing me a chart from the hero's journey, the Ray Dalio principle, and you were starting to talk about this thing called the abyss. Can we like riff on that here for a minute?
Yeah. So we talked about all the cool parts, like quitting your job and raising money on YouTube, right?
Right.
We haven't talked about all the parts that sucked. Like, I didn't know how to read a P&L. I didn't understand what a cash flow statement was, and I did not understand what a balance sheet was. And so I'm racking up. I raised $5 million. You could also translate it into that's $5 million worth of debt, right?
Yeah, right.
I didn't know anything about systems. I didn't know anything about processes. I didn't know anything about a team. I didn't know anything about accounting. And those are like skill sets and mindsets that were serious liabilities to all my investors' money, to include my family and my friends and family who invested with me, right? And like the culmination, rock bottom of it was I started flipping a bunch of houses, and then I started taking that cash and improving my own rentals, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought the improvements in my rentals were just business expenses. They were capital improvements. So I was tapped out on my cash, and of my profits that I put back into those houses, 30% of that was the government's. And so I didn't understand.
Right. They're capital improvements. You're actually you're investing in your own equity, which means it's taxable dollars.
But it's not liquid. Right.
Yeah. Now it's stuck in the properties.
And so Brad explains this to me. He's like, bro, you owe the government, you're going to owe the government 100 cash. How much you got in your bank right now? I was like 20. He's like, and I I almost had a panic attack in front of him. Yeah. And I was just like, how could I have been so stupid? And then he explained to me capital improvements and taxes and then a cash flow statement. And like, this took like 9 months. And like, I'm not stupid, right? But it's hard. It's hard to learn. And so after like 2016 and the cool part, and then I had to fire a business partner. Like that was another 40 grand down the drain. There were so many interpersonal skills that I did not know and that I'm still like developing now, that's the not fun part. Like when you think you owe the government 6 figures, that's a scary day.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're talking about all the stuff that's not in the, like you say, it's not in the fun
not
brochure.
On my Instagram page.
Yeah. Like you're talking about in entrepreneurship by Instagram proxy or whatever. It's like all the sexy lifestyle stuff, right?
Right. But it's like I had to go in, and so then I felt guilty about being so stupid, right? Mm-hmm. And then I read Ray Dalio Principles, and he's like, hey, look at the last 3,000 years of human storytelling. And it's always about a hero going to an abyss and coming back with the boon, which is like the lessons learned,
Right.
and then sharing that with everybody. And so it's like, I used to be being afraid of the abyss was the worst. And now that I realize, hey, basically your abyss and the boon you get becomes your info product. It's like, I just run into that face first.
Yeah. Your mess becomes your message, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so true, man, what you're saying. I mean, I've been through a couple of these cycles. And here's the thing. Every cycle, once you're an entrepreneur and you have ups and downs, every down feels worse than the one before it because you've had more ups. So you have more to lose and you have a little more ego that gets bruised. And then you're down again. But it seems to me that whenever you come out of that abyss, you always end up higher than you were before because you're a little bit smarter. And that's the point.
You're a lot of bit smarter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the point. And you know, what's that quote? Is it a Teddy Roosevelt quote about the arena, you know, being the man in the arena who has, as opposed to the timid soul who's never known victory nor defeat?
Yeah, who's just espousing his opinions.
Yeah, exactly. You know the quote. I need to memorize. It's such a great quote. But that's it, man. That's the shift. Like when you go from employee to entrepreneur, you come out of the stands and you step onto the field of the arena.
And
you're going to get your ass kicked. It's going to happen.
Just expect for it to suck. And then once you expect it, and then you're like, wow, that sucked, but it wasn't that bad. Like, that's the fun part.
So do you think that everyone is meant to be on the field? Or are there some people that are meant to stay in the stands?
No, like my boss at Stryker, that guy was meant to be a corporate executive. He was awesome. His whole unique ability revolved around it. Okay, the only advice I would give to him is like, and I've given this advice to him, is like, don't get crushed by the tax man.
So it's kind of like borrow some of the entrepreneurial investor principles, but don't kid yourself about who you are fundamentally.
Yeah, that guy's skill set is meant for a big organization. He was part of whatever your unique ability is. Like, I can't make the claim that everyone's unique ability is to be an entrepreneur. Like, I think some people's unique ability is to be a pastor or be a teacher. And they just got, you know, they have to play their game and develop their game to the highest it has to be. And I think there's a lot of people out there who are business owners and entrepreneurs who should not be doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't. There's some people that just, they can't. It's not that they can't, they shouldn't. They're not at their best when they're tolerating that risk, or when they're not tolerant of it. But they're not at their best when they're in the middle of risk.
And like in high school basketball, I was a great Scottie Pippen, right?
Yeah.
So like my junior year, when there was a senior who was awesome to me and I was like the second option, I was killing it, right? But it was senior year, my turn, I sucked.
Huh.
And so it's like, I do think there's some people who are great entrepreneurs.
Yeah, yeah. You hear that word a lot now. People that have an entrepreneurial approach to working inside of a large organization.
Like the guys I hire, like there's nothing I want more for them to be entrepreneurs and eventually do it themselves. Because, like I hired a guy at West Point, Connor. Like he is the definition of an entrepreneur, and he'll probably be an entrepreneur one day, but he built out my entire rehab system. I could not have done it. I didn't have the mindset to do. He actually has a nuclear engineering degree.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, well, it sounds like a good hire, man. You know, you got to build your organization with people smarter than you are, right?
Exactly. And then like, I'm just showing him, hey, here's how you get to your 60 rentals. And one day can tell me to go take this job and shove it.
Right. That's awesome, man. So, I unfortunately I have a time block coming up in like a few minutes, so we have to wrap. You and I are going to connect offline, 100%, because I want to talk about more real estate stuff. But how can the rest of the world get to go have that conversation with you too? How can they learn more about your real estate and just kind of get to know you in general? Yeah,
go to cashflowtactics.com and then go take our 5-day freedom challenge. Because what you need to know is your strike number. It's your first target. You find your first target and you just start hunting for it. So if you just Google like 5-day financial freedom challenge, we'll pop up.
Okay. And I think I have a link for that actually that I can put in the description.
Awesome.
On this, wherever this appears, the podcast and the YouTube show. And then how about you personally, man? If people just want to get into your world.
Vreeland-capital.com.
Vreeland Capital. Okay, cool. And your YouTube channel, is that just under Jimmy Vreeland?
Oh no, it's Cashflow Tactics now. I converted it all over.
Okay, cool.
Oh, if you want to see like the cool, fun, everyday stuff, just go to my wife's Instagram. She does all our posting. But I'll take the kids. My kids can almost do a rehab. So I take them to the rehab houses and we do videos of that and stuff like that.
And did I read correctly? You once flipped 100 houses in a year?
Well, that's what we do every year now.
Wow. But you know who else? No, who was it? I think, do you know Kent Clothier?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had him on the show and I think he actually, it wasn't flips, it was wholesale deals, but I think he wholesaled like 200 houses in a year, which is roughly comparable. His
family business is what I organized my business after. His brother's an awesome dude now too. They had his littlest brother went to West Point. So,
oh, cool.
They've been great helping me. Like they taught me this business.
Yeah, he was a great guy. Well, cool. Jimmy, this has been amazing. I appreciate you coming on Millionaire Secrets. Thanks for the history lesson, by the way, the World War II, post-World War II, economic, whatever what was that called after the war?
We do economic history lessons with Jimmy every once in a while inside Cashflow Tactics.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool, man. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. And thanks to the audience for listening. You guys check out more of Jimmy's stuff. This real estate thing, I preach it a lot. Real estate and digital business, it's not an either or to me. They're just two ends of the same spectrum. And Jimmy, thanks for your time, man. I'm going to talk to you later about this real estate stuff.
All right, bro. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Take care, everyone. Thank you for watching Millionaire Secrets. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and leave us a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you know whenever we release a new episode. Also, if you want to learn the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy, click the link in the description below to claim your free copy of my book, The Millionaire Shortcut. And don't forget, Millionaire Secrets is available on all the major podcast platforms as well. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you can listen on the go. Thanks for watching.